Part 50. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 502. Chapter 487 Adding Makeup. The queen passed away, and the prince should have observed mourning for 3 years. But Ning Chui was not born to the queen, and the emperor did not forget that it was precisely because of the queen's and concubine Anne's calculations that Ning Chuchu misunderstood her and left Kyoto in despair. The emperor did not ask Ning Chui to observe filial piety for 3 years. Instead, he changed the day to the month and held it for 27 days before releasing it. After the ceremony, the emperor issued another decree, instructing the Ministry of Rites and the Kintian supervisor to select a good and auspicious day to hold the wedding ceremony for the prince. I don't know if the emperor secretly issued any orders, but the auspicious day selected by the Ministry of Rites and the Kintian supervisor is half a month later. Ling Chu was very surprised when he learned about it. Although she was mentally prepared to marry Ning Chui, she didn't expect it to be so hasty. After much thought, she still made an appointment with Ning Chui and wanted him to go to the Ministry of Rites and the Kintian supervisor to discuss changing the date to an auspicious day. But Ning Chui wanted to marry her back to his house immediately, so naturally he didn't want to change the date. Ling Chu originally wanted to pick an auspicious day by herself, but she had no choice but to consider others and not herself, so she had to go to her master to find a way. But Master Xianyi said that he had already calculated and the auspicious day selected by the Ministry of Rites and the Qintian supervisor was the most suitable for her and Ning Chui. Ling Chu had no choice but to accept it in the end. Although King Dingyuan and the princess were reluctant to let their daughter get married so soon, the imperial edict was issued, so they could only start planning for their daughter's marriage. Although the wedding date was set hastily, it was still the prince's wedding. The Ministry of Rites knew that the emperor valued the prince, and did not dare to show any neglect. The Minister of Rites personally led his officials to prepare the 3 books and 6 rites, including receiving gifts, asking for names, accepting gifts, accepting taxes, and requesting dates. There should be many procedures. The Ministry of Rites was extremely busy, and everyone in the Dingyuan Palace was so busy that they hit the back of their heads with their feet. Since Princess Dingyuan recognized Ling Chu, she began to help her save her dowry. But she didn't expect that her daughter would get married so soon, and the dowry she saved was far from enough. Fortunately, the Dingyuan Palace is not short of money, let alone people. When her only daughter got married, Princess Dingyuan sent many people to buy various necessary items. Princess Dingyuan's natal family, Jiangxia Haofu, was naturally very happy to learn that her granddaughter was named a national counselor and was about to marry the prince. When the old lady saw that her granddaughter had not decided to get married yet, she took the initiative and chose part of the dowry she had saved for her granddaughter and had it sent to the Dingyuan Palace. The old lady's daughter-in-law is smart and knows that if her niece marries well and is favored in front of the prince, her daughter's status will also rise with the tide, and she will not have to worry about marriage in the future. Not only did she not stop the old lady, she also took the initiative to help Princess Dingyuan organize the wedding. Mrs. Nanan Ho, who was good friends with Princess Dingyuan, also helped find a lot of good things to add to Ling Chu's makeup. Although Prince Jing and Princess Jing regretted not marrying Ling Chu for Prince Jing's crown prince, they could not compete with the crown prince, so they still helped Princess Dingyuan a lot. The busy days pass by quickly, and in the blink of an eye it's time to put on makeup. Since Master Xianyi escorted the emperor back to the capital unharmed, the emperor not only gave him a house, but also rewarded him with many good things. Although Master Xianyi accepted them all, he did not value these vulgar things. Although Ling Chu was nominally his disciple, Master Xianyi loved her as a daughter. Almost all the things that the emperor rewarded, Xianyi ordered people to load into the car. Early in the morning, he sent his eldest disciple Ji Yuan to the Dingyuan Palace to give Ling Chu his makeup. Master and senior brother both sent things, and Qing Feng, as the third senior brother, was not far behind. He was the eldest son of Prince Rui's palace, and he had no shortage of power and wealth. With a wave of his hand, he gave his junior sister a full 10 carloads of gifts. Even the second senior brother, who was far away in Yeoang Valley, sent something over, but what he sent was not gold and silver, but 5 carts of various precious medicinal materials. Perhaps the emperor also knew that the wedding date was set too hastily and the Dingyuan palace had no time to prepare a dowry for his daughter, so he asked Yunakan to prepare a lot of silk and satin jewelry and give them to the Dingyuan palace as a supplement to the crown princess's makeup. Seeing that the emperor had given so many things, the concubines in the harem did not express their gratitude. They prepared gifts one after another and asked the stewards in their respective palaces to send them to the Dingyuan palace. Ling Chu grew up in Suankagwan since he was a child, and he didn't receive any handkerchiefs after returning to Beijing. However, King Dingyuan was favored by the emperor and his power was at its peak. Now there was a princess who was also a national counselor. All the officials in the capital wanted to make friends with Prince Dingyuan. It's just that in the past, King Dingyuan didn't want to make the emperor jealous, so he didn't make friends with courtiers on a large scale, so those officials who were interested in making money couldn't find opportunities to make friends. Nowadays, Prince Dingyuan is marrying off his daughter and is holding a grand banquet. No one wants to miss such a good opportunity. Taking advantage of the opportunity to add makeup, the ladies of each palace asked their daughters to prepare gifts and go to Dingyuan Prince's mansion to add makeup. At the beginning, Ling Chu could still smile dignifiedly and gracefully when facing the ladies from various houses in Beijing. But as more and more people came, she secretly complained in her heart. She never thought that it would be so difficult to keep a smile on her face, but these people were all here to add makeup to her. It was always hard for her to show off to others. Even if she was tired, she could only grit her teeth and persevere. When dusk fell and the guests who came to add makeup dispersed, the 2 east and west wings of the courtyard where Ling Chu lived and the 3 warehouses of the palace were filled with all kinds of gifts. And her face had become stiff with smiles all day long. At the summer solstice, the maids were happy but also distressed at the same time. Seeing the guest leave, he immediately brought hot water to soak the handkerchief and help Ling Chu apply it on his face. When the stiff cheeks relaxed, Ling Chu was too tired to move. Having a hasty meal, she washed up and prepared to go to bed. Unexpectedly, Ning Chui had someone bring her something at this time. After the concierge brought it over, he handed it over to the maid in the inner courtyard. When the maid brought it in, Ling Chu realized that what Ning Chui had given her was a 5-layer dowry. She couldn't help being surprised when she saw that the 2 maids were struggling to lift it. This is something given to her, it looks quite heavy. Out of curiosity, Ling Chu opened the dowry. When he saw the things placed on the first floor, Ling Chu's eyes suddenly widened. Ning Chui actually gave her a jade ruyi. Originally, she would not have been so surprised to see ruyi Ling Chu, but Ning Chui gave her more than 1 handful. But a full 6 handfuls. Each one has a different shape. The jade quality is delicate, crystal clear, and emerald green. You can tell at a glance that it is carved from the best jade. Ling Chu took a deep breath and slowly opened the lower 2 floors. As expected, it was filled with all kinds of hairpins, jade pendants, bracelets, forbidden steps, pendants, jade hairpins, step shakes, it was full of them, all made of jade. And they are all rare and good things. It can be seen that Ning Chui put a lot of thought into it, and I don't know where he got it from. But these things were sent to Ling Chu's heart. Her system is an out-and-out gold-eating beast, and no amount of emeralds and jade can be enough for it to absorb. It's just that these were given by Ning Chui, and she didn't plan to give them to the system unless it was absolutely necessary. After playing with it for a while, Ling Chu asked the maid to put away the dowry. Ning Chui was currently in the prince's residence, practicing his sword while imagining Ling Chu's reaction after receiving the gift. In fact, he wanted to deliver the things to her in person, but unfortunately the man and woman could not see each other before they got married, so he could only bear to miss her. But when she thought that tomorrow was her wedding day, Ning Chui's lips filled with a smile. Thanks to Shenya Yang for the reward of 100 book coins. Thanks to Yoon, 0808292220201007, Zizuha, Xianbin, .v, China Fuse, Goat Song and the Story of the Eyes, Scarred, E, Silly Baikia, Chen, Fei Wenli, Star and Sky, Crystal at Diamond, Xiao Yuhan, 1608091344425557, All Living Things, Flowers. Silent Words, Life is like a dream, dreams are like life, red leaves are fluttering. E, 13119213222849, CHLWCH, 1402121840214228, Sunflower Jelly, Why We Grow Old and other book friends recommend and vote for support. Thanks to the book friends who support Hungziu. Thanks to the book friends who support Hungziu. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 503. Chapter 488 The Wedding. After Ling Chu asked the maid to put away the dowry, Princess Ding Yuan came. She was holding a box in her hand, which contained the album. The princess is someone who has been here before, and she is also the daughter who teaches her, so she has nothing to be embarrassed about. She found out that Ning Chui had no concubines or married couples, and was worried that he would hurt his daughter because he was so angry and didn't know how to control himself. He gave Ling Chu many careful instructions, telling her to take more care of herself and not allow Ning Chui to ask for anything. Ling Chu knew that she cared about him, but it was difficult to say that she had already had a physical relationship with Ning Chui. She nodded obediently to everything the princess said. Princess Ding Yuan was relieved and sad at the same time. She only had one daughter, and she was transferred to her by Mr. Dong right after she was born. It was not easy to get her back, and she was going to get married in a short time. There is naturally a lot of reluctance in my heart. Hold Ling Chu in her arms and chattered a lot. Seeing that she was too sleepy to open her eyes, she reluctantly left. Ling Chu was lying on the bed, thinking that she would not be able to sleep. After all, this was the first time in her 2 lives that she had gotten married. But Sue was too tired, so she turned over twice and fell asleep unconsciously. It's just that Ling Chu didn't sleep for long that night. Before dawn, she was woken up by the maid. The stewardesses around Princess Ding Yuan led a group of maids carrying trays and various boxes, and filed into her boudoir. Mammy and the maids all had smiles on their faces, and they all said a blessing to Ling Chu, and then began to perform their duties. Waiting for Ling Chu to bathe, change clothes, freshen up and dress up. These are the most useful people around the princess, and they are well trained on weekdays. Although there are many people at this moment, they are orderly and not noisy. After bathing in fragrant soup, the maids waited on Ling Chu to dress. Ling Chu's wedding dress was embroidered by the embroiderers in the palace. The patterns were complicated, but they were extremely exquisite and luxurious. It's just that this wedding dress is a bit heavy when worn layer by layer on the body. Fortunately, her body has recovered a lot now, and the weather is not hot, otherwise Ling Chu would be worried that she would faint from the heat. At this moment, in addition to the maidservants from Prince Ding Yuan's palace, there are 2 palace maids waiting in the boudoir. Ning Chui was worried that Ling Chu was nervous about the marriage, so he sent her specially to comfort her and teach her some palace etiquette. Knowing that the prince valued the princess, the 2 nuns were all smiles on their faces. Princess, this happy prince has told the embroiderer many times to choose light and exquisite materials for making, but she is worried that it is too heavy. There is also this phoenix crown, but the prince designed it himself and revised it many times before finalizing it. He was worried that it would be too heavy and would weigh on your neck. Ling Chu glanced at the phoenix crown lying next to him and felt a little surprised. She didn't even know that Ning Chui could also design phoenix crowns. But it's really beautiful. Although it looks lighter than other phoenix crowns, its shape is complicated yet exquisite. Especially the golden wings and phoenix feathers on the top are lifelike, as if they are about to spread their wings and fly high. If the palace maid hadn't said anything, Ling Chu would have thought it was made by the master craftsman in the palace. Mother Quanfu, who came to comb Ling Chu's hair, was specially invited by Princess Ding Yuan. Although she is a bit old, she is a very blessed person with 2 children. Ling Chu sat quietly in front of the dressing table, listening to Grandma Quanfu combing her hair while mumbling something, and she felt a little dazed in her heart. After traveling through time, she inherited the fragile body of the original owner. She just wanted to earn more merit and extend her life, and had no intention of getting married. Unexpectedly, he was granted the title of Imperial Master and was given the title of marriage to the Crown Prince. It seemed that at this moment, Ling Chu truly realized that she was about to get married. After Ling Chu finished dressing up, Princess Ding Yuan looked at her daughter in wedding clothes, feeling happy and sad at the same time. The circles under his eyes were red for a moment. The 2 palace ladies looked at each other and knew that Princess Ding Yuan did not want to leave her daughter to get married. She was worried that when she cried, the princess would cry too, ruining her makeup. The palace maid hurriedly said, "Have you prepared anything to eat, princess?" Although the crown princess is getting married, it is not easy for her to eat and drink a lot, but the crown prince is worried about the crown princess and doesn't want her to starve. Specially told the crown princess to use some food to cushion her belly. Princess Ding Yuan is someone who has been here before and knows that the etiquette on the wedding day is complicated, and it is really uncomfortable to go without eating or drinking all day long. My daughter is already weak, so she can't make a joke about fainting from hunger on the way to get married. I couldn't care less about my sadness anymore, and hurriedly asked the maid to bring some food. Ling Chu didn't want to go hungry, so he took the bird's nest porridge brought by the maid and ate most of the bowl and 2 snacks. His stomach felt much better. A woman came forward to remove the bowls and chopsticks, and Xiaoji hurriedly brought tea and a spittoon for Ling Chu to rinse his mouth. After things were tidied up again, many blessed women came. Under the guidance of the auspicious officials, they said auspicious words before getting married. In ancient times, weddings were very particular. Before going out, Ling Chu would go to the ancestral hall to worship the ancestors of the Han family. Then we say goodbye to our parents. King Ding Yuan and his concubine looked at their daughter kneeling in front of them in wedding clothes, feeling very reluctant to part with them. But I can only comfort myself that my daughter is not marrying far away, but is in the capital, and there will be opportunities to meet her in the future. Unknowingly, the auspicious time to welcome the bride has arrived. Ning Chui was already handsome, and the luxurious wedding clothes he wore today made his face look like a crown jewel. It was a happy day, and he was marrying the girl he liked. His expression today was not as cold as before. There was a soft smile on his handsome face, and his sword eyes were as bright as ever. As he walked along, it was no surprise that he attracted the attention of everyone who saw him. Everyone couldn't help but sigh that Mr. Ning, who had always been ruthless and murderous, actually had such a gentle side. Originally, when Ling Chu got married, her brother Han Lin, the crown prince of Ding Yuan, was supposed to carry the sedan chair. But Ning Chui didn't give him a chance. Before Han Lin squatted down, Ning Chui bent down and picked up Ling Chu. Wearing a red hijab, Ling Chu did not see Ning Chui. She was startled by the sudden weightlessness. Fortunately, she reacted quickly and realized it was Ning Chui, so she didn't scream. Han Lin didn't expect Ning Chui to come out like this and stared at him. If he hadn't thought that this was his sister's happy day, Han Lin could hardly help but punch the prince's handsome face. The ceremony officials in the palace were also shocked, but the prince was overjoyed and did not dare to say that his behavior was out of order. King Ding Yuan and the princess opened their mouths. Listening to others praising the prince for loving the prince, the couple looked at each other and reluctantly swallowed the words in their mouths. Ning Chui hugged Ling Chu and strode out along the red carpet. At this moment, he couldn't see outsiders in his heart, only the beauty in his arms. Many ladies who came to the wedding banquet saw the scene and envied the princess for marrying the right person. Ning Chui carried Ling Chu to the sedan chair, and waited until 11 Niang opened the curtain of the sedan chair before letting her in. Taking the opportunity to bend down, Ning Chui quickly whispered to her, "There is water and snacks in the sedan. If you are hungry, you can use it first." So considerate, Ling Chu smiled. Remembering that she was covered with a hijab and Ning Chui couldn't see her, she hurriedly whispered, "Okay." Ning Chui let go of her hand with a smile and lowered the sedan curtain. "Get up and move away." Ning Chui came on horseback to welcome his bride. Behind him were two groups of guards who also rode tall horses and looked solemn. When Ning Chui got on his horse, the sedan chair was steadily lifted up amidst the singing of the ceremony officer. Thanks to Shwe'er for her monthly support. Thanks to Zizuha, Ixixi, Panax Noto Ginseng. DB, Pros. BA, 968,751, Xianbin, .v, Deo Skarhong, Wuhu Dash, E, Shabiakia, 201706161940236220. Chen, Why We Grow Old, Road 92, Red Leaves Fluttering. E, Yun, The Wind Returns to a Mirror and Rubs the Blue Light, Flowers. Silently, there is no end of the world, no distance, no living beings. Life is like a dream, dreams are like life. Shwe'er, Lalonzixi, 2020706130425328, CHLWCH, China Fuse, Star and Sky, Morning Flowers Under the Scorching Sun, Silent Blessings, Panax Noto Ginseng. DB, Xiangyang Xianko and other books recommended by book friends vote support. Thanks to the book friends who support Hungziu. Thanks to the book friends who support Hungziu. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 504. Chapter 489 The Wedding Night, Finale. On this day, the streets in Kyoto were deserted, and the road leading from the Dingyuan Palace to the Prince's Palace was crowded with people watching the excitement. Amidst the roaring firecrackers and the blast of gongs, drums, and suanas, the people of Kyoto rarely saw the prince riding a tall horse with a bright smile on his face. Almost no one dares to believe that this is the commander of the Imperial Guard who once could stop children from crying at night. Even though Ning Chui was extremely handsome today, everyone's attention was quickly attracted by the dowry procession behind the sedan. Tisk, tisk, this endless team, I'm afraid it's not necessary to have this 10-mile red makeup, but it's really eye-opening for us. No, look at the boys who are carrying the dowry, they are all very powerful, the dowry doesn't look easy on them, and they don't know how many good things are in the box. This is the princess's wedding. I heard that the dozens of dowries at the front were all rewards from the palace. Have you forgotten that the crown princess is still the imperial master? I heard that Master Xianyi and several of his disciples sent dozens of carts of dowry to the Dingyuan Palace. The 10 miles of red makeup made the people watching talk about it with excitement. The excited voices almost drowned out the sound of Suanation's gongs and drums. Even Ling Chu, who was sitting in the sedan chair, could vaguely hear a lot of discussion. But they didn't know that the dowry was less than half of the total amount. Ling Chu was transferred to the Dong family when he was just born. He grew up in Suankigwan since he was a child. He was not found until he was 4 years old. King Dingyuan and his wife felt that they owed her too much. If Ling Chu hadn't stopped them, they would have given her all their property as a dowry. Even though Ling Chu tried his best to stop her, the prince and princess still prepared a lot of dowry for her. Coupled with the gifts from Master Xianyi and his 3 disciples, the rewards from the emperor and the concubines in the harem, and the congratulatory gifts from various palaces, Ling Chu's dowry was already so large that she would not be able to spend it all in 10 lifetimes. It's just that King Dingyuan and his wife were worried that if they sent the entire dowry to the prince's mansion at once, it would be too sensational and would attract the attention of interested people. So taking advantage of yesterday's opportunity to send someone to make a bed at the prince's mansion, Princess Dingyuan had already sent someone to deliver part of the dowry there. 160 men were left behind to marry Ling Chu. In addition to these, half of it is in the warehouse of Prince Dingyuan. In order to keep a low profile, the prince and princess planned to send it to their daughter quietly after a while. Ling Chu was covered with a hijab and could not see anything. His ears were filled with the continuous sound of firecrackers and festive suana sounds. There were also the cheering and exclamations of children along the road. I don't know how long it took before the sedan stopped. Ling Chu secretly breathed a sigh of relief and waited for 11 Niang to lead her off the sedan chair. Unexpectedly, Ning Chui stretched out his long arms and took her out again. After walking up the white jade steps, Ning Chui bent down and put her down. Putting one end of the red silk into her hand, the two of them entered the gate of the prince's mansion together. This house was specially built by the emperor by the Ministry of Works. Originally, he wanted to give it to Ning Chui, but due to his background, he did not accept it. After the house was built, it remained empty. After the emperor granted the marriage, he ordered the Ministry of Works to come over to repair it, and expanded it a lot according to the prince's regulations. People from the Ministry of Works worked day and night to complete the building before the wedding. Ning Chui took the red silk and introduced Ling Chu into the prince's mansion step by step. The prince's wedding was supposed to be held at the ancestral temple, but the Emperor Su, considering Ling Chu's health, only asked them to go to the ancestral temple tomorrow. Although I didn't go to the ancestral temple, I still had to worship my ancestors and get approval from the ancestors of the Xiao family before I could worship in the hall. The incense table and altar have been set up in the main hall of the prince's mansion, and the 2 palace maids sent by Ning Chui have taught Ling Chu the process. After completing a series of complicated and lengthy etiquettes, Ling Chu could hardly count how many times she had been guided to pray. Fortunately, Ning Chui was always there to support her. At this moment, Ling Chu was still very grateful to the emperor for his consideration and not asking her to go to the ancestral temple on the wedding day, otherwise she might really faint from exhaustion. After worshipping the ancestors, the second worship is in the high hall. However, the emperor did not attend the wedding, and Ning Chu was still treating illnesses in Yaoang Valley. Ning Chui and Ling Chu could only bow 3 times to the top position. Then the couple worships each other. When the etiquette officer finally announced that the ceremony was completed, Ling Chu was so tired that he almost couldn't stand up. When he was sent to the bridal chamber, he finally breathed a sigh of relief. After entering the new house, although there are still many rules and rituals, there is no need to kneel down and kowtow. Ning Chui took a scale and lifted Ling Chu's hijab. The sudden bright light made Ling Chu raise her head subconsciously, and she blinked. Suddenly she realized that Ning Chui's face today was more handsome than ever before, and she was stunned unconsciously. Ning Chui stood in front of her with a smile, looking down at Ling Chu, who was wearing a wedding dress. The light in her eyes was even more burning. The prince and the princess looked at each other with a gluey look, which made the maid and woman next to them blush. Mother Li was smiling from ear to ear. She didn't want to interrupt the two of them's flirting, but the etiquette wasn't over yet, so she had to clear her throat gently. Seeing that the prince and princess came to their senses, the ceremonial nun said auspicious words and guided them to drink the hexen wine. After all the etiquette was over, the etiquette mama left the room with the maids and women in the room, and closed the bedroom door. Before Ling Chu had time to react, She and Ning Chui were the only two people left in the room. Seeing her blushing face, Ning Chui glanced at her, raised his hand to take off the phoenix crown on her head, and asked softly, "The wedding dress is a bit heavy, do you want to change it now?" Perhaps he was too close, or maybe he was more handsome than usual in his red and gold wedding dress. Coupled with his low tone at this moment, Ling Chu suddenly blushed and his heart beat. "No need, I'll change it later." "Good." Ling Chu suddenly smiled when he saw him, his heart skipped a beat, and he was about to say a few words to ease the ambiguous atmosphere. But she saw Ning Chui stretched out his long arms and pulled her into his arms. Ling Chu felt a fiery breath covering her overwhelmingly. Before she could react, Ning Chui opened his mouth and captured her red lips. Since the last night in Xiangui, Ning Chui has never been close to Ling Chu. He wanted to kiss her gently and then let go, but the beauty in his arms was so sweet that Ning Chui quickly forgot about her self-control. From being gentle and rubbing, it soon became strong and domineering. After prying open the shell teeth, it became even more persistent. Ling Chu's body that was sitting upright soon fell limp into his arms. I don't know how long it took, but there was a knock on the door outside, interrupting Ning Chui's strong plunder. Wei Feng's urging voice came through the wooden door, "Prince, it's time to take a seat." When King Dingyuan got married to his daughter, all the officials went to congratulate her. Since the prince is getting married, those officials naturally don't want to miss this opportunity to make friends. In order to ensure that both parties were not absent, many officials went to Dingyuan Prince's mansion to have a meal first, and then seamlessly went to the prince's mansion to congratulate him. Ning Chui heard Wei Feng's warning voice and reluctantly let go of Ling Chu, but his fingers gently touched her red lips. If he didn't have to show up in front of the guests outside, he really didn't want to let go. Taking a deep breath to calm down, Ning Chui said hoarsely, "I'll be right back." Ling Chu was still panting and didn't speak. He only raised his hand and pushed, signaling him to get out quickly. Ning Chui saw her charming look, suppressed her restlessness, leaned over and kissed her lightly on the lips before standing up and leaving. Just as Ling Chu calmed down, Xiaji and Lu Xiangju opened the door and walked in. Behind him were several maids carrying food boxes. Ling Chu was very hungry, so he had his meal served by his maids, took off his heavy wedding clothes, and went behind the screen to bathe in fragrant soup. As soon as he sat down on the bed, Ning Chui walked in, smelling of alcohol. With so many officials, Ling Chu thought he would have to socialize until midnight, but he didn't expect to be back so soon. Ning Chui saw her doubts, but didn't explain anything. If it wasn't for being drunk, he wouldn't have been able to come back so quickly. Ning Chui never had a maid around him, and all the people who waited on him were servants. Now that he is getting married, he will naturally not let the servants serve in the house. But he didn't want Ling Chu's maids to wait on him, so he waved his hands to them. After they left, Ning Chui took his clothes and went to take a bath. He moved very quickly. Ling Chu had just turned 2 pages of the book beside the bed before he came over. Ling Chu looked up, thought for a while, and asked, "Are you hungry? Do you need some food?" Ning Chui shook his head. He had already eaten at the banquet. Unexpectedly, after he sat down by the bed, he said, "I'm hungry." Ling Chu was stunned for a moment, then shook her head and said she wasn't hungry. She was confused. But before she could speak, Ning Chui had already taken the book away from her hand. With one movement, he pulled her into his arms, lowered his head and covered his red lips. Ling Chu glared at him and then realized what he was hungry for. Although her glare was angry, it had a different kind of charm in Ning Chui's eyes. After a long time, now I finally waited for the candle night in the cave room. Ning Chui didn't want to waste it at all. Hold the beauty in his arms and immediately launched an offensive. Ling Chu was immersed in his kiss unknowingly. The oxygen was taken away and she was forced to open her mouth. Ning Chui was waiting for this opportunity. He immediately rushed in and guided Ling Chu to play with him between his lips and teeth. Hands are never idle. One hand rubbed along Ling Chu's waist, and the other hand unbuttoned her clothes. His warm palms went in along the hem of her clothes, and quickly climbed up the snow-white and smooth skin until they reached the peak. The big palm spread out and wrapped the trembling Big Peach. Ling Chu's sensitive body quickly became weak, and he couldn't hold it on until he fell on the bed, and Ning Chui covered him up. The clothes were taken off one by one, and the curvaceous body lay on the red brocade quilt, making the smooth and delicate skin even more charming. Even a saint cannot hold back such an alluring beauty. Ning Chui's slender and strong body immediately covered it, and her big hand, which was used to holding a sword, was like touching the most precious treasure in the world, along the exquisite curves, from top to bottom, gently rubbing and slowly twisting and lifting. Chu-chu, hearing the tender moans beneath him, Ning Chui's tail vertebrae went numb, and he called out in a low voice, holding back the fire of desire that was about to explode. Ling Chu looked at him with eyes that were stained by lust. Chu-chu Ning Chui became even more excited by her sight, and called out again in a low and hoarse voice. I'm coming in. The dragon and phoenix candles crackled, and a ray of lanterns burst out. The red curtain falls lightly, the dragon and the phoenix are turned upside down, the flowers bloom and have the same heart. End of full text. The ending is full of flowers. This is the author's second book. Since its inception, I have been grateful to all my book friends for their continuous support. Here, I would like to thank everyone again for their votes, comments, tips, and concerns, and also to those book friends who pointed out shortcomings. It's coming to an end. I'm very, very sad to say goodbye. It is with your support that this article can come to a successful conclusion. Thanks for having you, Bao. Although there is always a banquet in the world, I hope we will meet again in the next book. Xian Book Friends Group, 7693258897. When new articles are published, they will be announced in the group in advance.